The future is here. It's always here. The question is, can you see it or not? I was absolutely suicidal for a decade, and I would have taken my own life had it not been for my 3 children. We tried to treat my body like a smartphone that improves every single month. And so to do that, we just said we're going to measure every single biological element of the body we can. We're going to look at all the scientific evidence we can. It's the moment where don't die becomes possible in the first time in human history. In this moment, we are living the ideas of dead people. I've been personally pretty surprised at the intensity at which people defend death. It's an indication that I've properly set my sights correctly.
Either die or try to live forever.
The single most ambitious thing intelligence can do in this moment is don't die.
Welcome back to the pod. Today we have Bryan Johnson with us. Bryan, you are someone who I have watched over the last couple of years now with a lot of admiration for a handful of reasons that we're going to get into today. It's a range of things, both from your actual work to, I think, just the way you navigate attention online in service of your goals. So just first off the bat, thank you for joining me. I am genuinely very excited about this one. It means a lot to have you here. Your company, Braintree, acquired Venmo in 2012. You sold all of it to PayPal in 2013. And by all sort of tech measures of success, this was like a grand slam, right? You've knocked it out of the park. This is kind of, you've climbed the mountain. You've done what so many young people work decades in tech to do. And I think at that point, from where I'm sitting, my read of kind of what you were going through, well, there are a lot of things you were going through, but on that one piece, on the company piece, there's a natural question that follows. And I've seen it play out for sort of every massive success. It's like, what do you do now that you've done sort of the huge, enormous thing? And some people go and they, do a venture, they go to a venture firm. Some people start like another company or two, they invest. Some people just, fuck off and go on vacation for a decade and call it a day. A few charities, I don't know. You decide, you go on let's just say there's a different path for you. You have a goal of arresting the human aging process. And right off the bat, I would like to go back before I get into what that means, before I get into your routine, before I get into any of these sort of like the media's reception of that and the tech industry's reception of that, which I think is maybe the thing that I'm most excited to talk to you about today. I would like to get back in your head around that time, because you have also previously alluded to sort of a period of depression and a sort of coming out of your former relationship with God, your former relationship with a church. Like, what is the timeline there? At what point do you decide to go on this sort of journey through the longevity space?
In 1 year's time, I sold Braintree Venmo, got a divorce, left the religion formally, and set off on a new path.
So it was all right. It's 2013 is when this specific journey to Blueprint begins, because you're popping off like that's a 10-year journey. Right, you first kind of reemerged publicly a couple of years ago, and sort of start making all of the content about this, and you get all the attention in the first huge pieces. But it was like sort of a 10-year journey through this.
Yeah, exactly. This is when I was 21 years old. I came back from Ecuador. I was a Mormon missionary there, living among extreme poverty, and I came back to the United States, and it was this reckoning moment where I was understanding where I came from, where I had been, and what the future meant to me. And the only way I could understand existence was that I wanted to do something that improved the lives of all of humanity. It didn't make sense to me to make money, to get a job and make money for status purposes. It was just, I don't know, it just seemed like it was the only conclusion a reasonable person could make. And so at the age of 21, I determined I would become an entrepreneur, make a whole bunch of money by age of 30, and then with money, go out and try to do something meaningful for the human race. And so that was my orientation from the get-go. So it was entrepreneurship was a means to an end, really, for that goal.
But you also, in that year, that pivotal year that everything changes, in the time preceding that, where you were doing you were sort of doing this initial phase of work, you've characterized that as like quite dark. I'm wondering,
Yes.
was there a catalyst, something that sparked you, something that you saw or something that challenged you, whether it be a conversation with another person, a trip, a book, like what was it? If you had to look back, or a few things, what was the trigger for you to go on even just this sort of, I guess, rediscovery of yourself?
I mean, it really goes back to my upbringing, where I was raised in this small rural community on a farm with my grandpa. And the only reality in that entire community was Mormonism. I was never presented with an alternative reality. I didn't meet an engineer until I was 21 years old. And so when you grow up with a singular understanding of all existence, where specifically the world is painted into good people and bad people, you're the good people, everyone else is the bad people, and you're there to, convince bad people that you're the good people, then when you engage with the real world and you start being exposed to other ways of understanding reality, it's a pretty big shock. And that happened in my 20s. So I was already married to a Mormon woman. We had Mormon children. My entire community was there. I was building startup companies. I was in that process. And so I actually left the church mentally far before I left it formally. But in that moment, if you discontinue your obligations in that community, you sever your relationship, with the community, you're just kind of an outcast, like everything crumbles. And then what do you do with your kids? And so I kind of just put my head down and stayed with the program, like in the relationship, in the community. But meanwhile, I'm trying to understand reality. And my mind always went to these questions of like, what is happening? Like, what is really going on? It never made sense to me to just play the game that was in front of me, which is like, make money, buy a house, do a car, have status, have authority. I was really at all point in time trying to understand like what is actually happening in existence, and what does that mean to me, and what do I do because of it? And so it was basically this premise that no game in society was worth playing unless I could reconcile that idea with my understanding of existence.
And so you make the transition at the top of this conversation and also in the piece. So you and I had a full conversation that we're going to have the transcript, partly edited, lightly edited, online at piratewires.com, as well as the piece that I wrote about our exchange and sort of some additional thoughts on the longevity project in general. But throughout this, I've sort of characterized your goal high level here. Obviously, there's this greater the goal of human welfare or flourishing or greatness. But to narrow it down a little bit, I've been characterizing it as arresting the human aging process, or extending human longevity. Would you sort of accept that characterization?
Yeah, I would. Yes, and I would yes and that. I would say I was heavily influenced by Albert Camus, the French philosopher, and he's a formidable intellect, and he explored the frontiers of philosophical thinking on existence. And he came back with this remarkably simple conclusion, which is if you go to that extreme of thought, you come back with this really simple question: do you commit suicide? That's the only question that matters, because you realize that everything is meaningless. And then if you choose to not commit suicide, then it's play. And it's play hard. And then I jump to James Carse. And if you're going to play, do you play a finite game where there's winners and losers? There's a start time and an end time? Or do you play an infinite game where the only objective of the game is to keep on playing? And that's how I reconciled my existence. Is if I'm a conscious entity, I think I exist. I think I'm experiencing consciousness. Not sure, but that's what it feels like. Given that's the state of affairs for me, then the next step I could do is to say, well, the only thing to do is to keep on playing the game, which means the only thing that matters is to focus on eliminating death.
Would you be, this is sort of a strange question maybe, but while you were speaking about this, I had this idea that, would it be fair to say that you were contemplating an end to your own life and the alternative was this? It was like either die or try to live forever.
Exactly right. I was absolutely suicidal for a decade. and I would have taken my own life had it not been for my 3 children.
I mean, this is obviously an enormous and dark sort of space in your life, but from there, the sort of the levity with which you approach the next chapter has been really remarkable to me. You get tons of hatred, and I think that it is. I mean, I have so many thoughts on why people are mad about what you're doing. Right, a couple years ago, the first slew of pieces start coming out. Obviously, the press has a problem with you because the press is run from sort of one ideological point of view. In that spectrum of thought, rich people doing anything is kind of not allowed. Like anyone who wants to do something big or weird or says they have an ambitious goal, that's considered suspect right now in this climate. But then on the other hand, you get a lot of it from, it's like the tech industry as well. And there's a reaction perhaps to your aesthetics at some point. I have some thoughts here. What do you think about the sort of the hatred you get for your work in longevity?
I have such a positive emotional relationship with the hate. I love it. I mean, it absolutely makes me so happy. I love to engage with it. I love to see it. I love to see people's insults. I love it when they work hard at them. I
actually have a question here. What is do you have a favorite insult?
Oh man, there's been so many good ones. Like one time somebody posted a picture of like what would look like an animal skin, like all flat, pulled out, to the sides, and it was basically a human. So basically like a skinned human, just one layer. And it was something like, this guy looks like Bryan Johnson. That was pretty clever. There's been so many good ones. Let's talk about, maybe back up slightly before we get into all of the hatred and how you think about it. And I have some further questions here. They're reacting, not just, it's the aesthetics of you, I think, right? It's like you are naked quite a lot in your pictures online. There is the outlandish outfits and things like this. It's also the actual process. So before we get maybe into aesthetics, it will be helpful to go through just maybe the constellation of programs that you're working on now, the sort of companies and projects, just what they are, briefly, that you're actually working on, and then your routine. I would love to know about your diet and your daily personal routine. Yeah, I think so. If this is helpful for anyone who's listening, this is how I think about hate. Is once you realize that in any given moment, the zeitgeist, that is the beliefs that people have, the norms they adhere to, the things they care about, the meaning-making games they explain they're going after, those are relics of the past. Those are ideas of dead people. In any given moment, in this moment, we are living the ideas of dead people. And that's been true for every generation before us. The future is here. It's always here. The question is, can you see it or not? And so when I work as an entrepreneur, I specifically do not want to be respected by people in my time and place. I want to be respected by the people from the 25th century. Because if you seek the respect for people now, you're married to the past. And you can't be you can't push the boundaries of what's possible because you're wed to that looking backwards. And so when people are having these reactions, it's so predictable that they're just basically saying, hey, Bryan, you don't match the 2023 zeitgeist, which is built upon the ideas of dead people, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. Of course, I'm trying to bridge the 25th century. Of course, you're going to get that reaction. So to me, it's an indication that I've properly set my sights correctly.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Pirate Wires pod. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment below, and share this with your friends. If you were respected by contemporaries in the 21st century, it would imply necessarily that you were at least you might not be wrong in what you were doing, but you were not working on the right thing according to the future. You characterized a thought experiment of yours where you communed with beings from the 25th century. This is how you came to your goal about the longevity project. Can you talk a little bit about maybe characterize that or sort of lay that out for us briefly?
Yeah,
here?
I mean, I think it's cool to think about, just go back in the centuries and say, all right, if you lived in the 7th century, what would be the most ambitious thing somebody could imagine doing? What would that be for the 8th century and the 9th and the 10th and the 11th, and just go walk through the centuries. And you could say, okay, like in the 15th century, you could endeavor to sail around the world. The navigation tools were good enough. The ships were good enough. They learned enough about navigating the oceans. You could have done it probably in the 12th century or 13th century. And so at a given time and place, and that's the question I asked, is, okay, we're in 2023. What is the single most ambitious thing I can do in this moment?
And now, I mean, in the 21st century, your sense is that dramatically extending the human lifespan is possible for the first time.
Yeah, it's basically the single most ambitious thing intelligence can do in this moment is don't die.
But do you think something has changed recently that has sort of opened this up? Because I mean, presumably this was also the most important thing that people should have done several hundred years ago. But are we just like technologically closer to that project?
Yeah, I learned this in I started OS Fund after I sold Braintree Venmo as a way to basically get a degree in deep tech of learning all the hard sciences and engineering. And I was first money in Ginkgo Bioworks, who's now the dominant provider in synthetic biology, a company called Numat, which is doing precision chemistry, building structures atom by atom. It's using metal organic frameworks. And being in the trenches with these companies for like 42 companies in the past decade has shown me that we have the ability to reliably engineer all of reality. We can engineer atoms and molecules. We can engineer biological organisms. We can engineer digital reality. We can even engineer our own biochemistry. We've acquired the skills of gods to engineer reality. And when you have those basic skills, you just simply apply the function of time and you're going to solve it. We know that biology radically extending our lives is doable because it's already done in nature. Nature already has shown that you can regenerate oneself. And so it's not like we're up against the laws of physics and trying to figure out how to travel faster than light. And so to me, and then you map on the final element, which is like how fast is artificial intelligence improving? And yeah, it's the moment where don't die becomes possible in the first time in human history.
The canvas for the project is yourself. That's where you do the work. It's in your own body. And that's what you reveal online, your progress and whatnot. It is a process of measuring, it seems to be the really important thing here is sort of naming metrics for success. And where in my body, what in my body is dying, so to speak. How did I die today? Measuring how much you died in a given moment and then correcting for that. Can you sort of lay down maybe like a list of the sort of average or a list of the tests that you'll take in a day? What are the metrics for success? And how do you go about living every day so as not to die? Like what are you measuring? And what does your day look like?
With technology, we are accustomed to doing version control. Version 1 leads to version 2, to version 3, version 4. It just gets better every single version. We tried to do the same thing with my body. We tried to treat my body like a smartphone that improves every single month. And so to do that, we just said we're going to measure every singi biological element of the body we can. We're going to look at all the scientific evidence we can. So yeah, my day today, I woke up at 4:32 in the morning. I did, I'll walk you through the things I did. I did a few minutes of light exposure with 10,000 lux at 12 inches from the eyes. I took my waking body temperature through my ear. I do every morning. It's a really good indicator of overall if something's happening. I weighed myself, got body fat, muscle, water, hydration. I then did HRV therapy. I did some meditation. I took 62 pills in 20 ounces of liquids with creatine, collagen peptides, cinnamon, cocoa powder, and some electrolytes. Did an hour of workout. I did some red light therapy, bathed, did some skincare, ate a couple pounds of vegetables, and I started my day. And that's the first 4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. On the vegetable, right? What does your diet consist of? It seems like you've broken this down for me previously as sort of the core things are still it's diet, sleep, and exercise. What are you eating? Because it seems Americans are kind of famously obsessed with their diet, and it tends to tie to people's identity, I've noticed. So you have the carnivores and the paleo people, and that says a lot about, you can sort of start to understand their politics just from their diet typically, which is unique to this country. Your diet clocks in a strange way. Maybe it's so extreme that it's not so different, but the vegetarianism clocks as someone who tends to be nature focused and not super into like self-transformation, but you're a vegetarian, right? Like what does your diet look like?
So breakfast is broccoli, cauliflower, ginger, garlic, black lentils, hemp seeds. The next meal is a pudding, nutty pudding, which is macadamia nuts, walnuts, flaxseed, berries, pea protein, and pomegranate juice. And the next meal is a bunch of berries, nuts, and fruit and vegetables. So, and then that take 100 pills. And the 100 pills it's not to address deficiencies from the diet. The 100 pills is to basically be like, again, this is the question Magellan tried to sell around the world. We're trying to achieve perfect health. And so the 100 pills is basically taking all the scientific literature that's ever been done to say, what is the very best health you can create in a human in the year 2023?
Okay, so we've got the diet, we have the routine. You have this massive team of doctors. You spend, millions of dollars a year. No, this is what the headlines say.
Yeah.
I need to know about the penis rejuvenation. I've seen a lot of it about this online. You've talked about erection health as a metric, I think, for sort of youthfulness. Maybe just can you break that down for me and explain to me, the penis layman, how to get to like optimal penis health?
Yeah. The first thing to do is to take baseline measurements, and you can do those with questionnaires, and they assess, erectile strength, duration, penetration ability. And so once you take those tests, I scored a 25 out of 25. So I have 100% performance of my sexual abilities now. So that was my baseline. If somebody does that and they have, some form of erectile dysfunction or something else, then the path would be different. So that was my baseline. And then we proposed this idea. Could I basically have the most quantified penis in the world? And so then we looked at all the scientific literature, and we said, okay, how do you quantify the penis? Like, how do you scientifically measure penis function from every possible direction? And so we did a comb through the evidence, and we came up with like 6 or 7 ways to measure my penis, my sexual function, my penis health. And we just started doing that. So for example, like one of the tests was you want to look at blood flow through the penis. So, a determining factor on how hard you can become is the flow of blood through your penis. And so to do that, I got an injection in my penis that it creates an erection, and then ultrasound is used to measure blood flow rate, and that can be age quantified. And so the younger you are, the stronger the blood flows to the penis. The older you are, the less you have, which means it's more flaccid. And so that was one. And then other ones we did something looking for penis plaque. A lot of people hear the word plaque and you think plaque on teeth. There's actually a disease that is formed with penis plaque, which makes the penis curve. So we did a penis plaque. I have 0 penis plaque. We did some adjacencies to the penis. We looked at my max urination speed. So how fast can you pee? So you have to drink a whole bunch of liquid, and then you're measuring the volume of that. We looked at that we just got this device. We haven't done the measurement yet, but the sensitivity of the tip of the penis, because just like your nerve endings age like everything else, and so you become less sensitive over time. We did a few more things. So then that was like the measurement protocol, and then we jumped to the therapy of like, what do you do to improve sexual performance and penis health? And one thing we landed on was focused shockwave therapy. It uses acoustical technology to basically, it's like working out the area. So it's like, when you go to the gym, you work out, it creates micro tears, which then rebuilds. And this is doing the same, and it can be used throughout the entire body. So all tendons, all ligaments, all joints. It can also be used on the penis. So people who have erectile dysfunction, they get the focused shockwave therapy done on their penis, which helps then regenerate in certain ways, and they can recover from erectile dysfunction. And so even though I didn't start with the erectile dysfunction, I did that to say, could we amplify it? And one of the measurements we were doing was nighttime erections. So we have this little device, you put it on the shaft, you wear it at the base, and then you wear it before you go to bed. But it's really, you think about it like you're going to be irritated the whole night, but once you put it on to go to bed, you just forget about it. And it has this little string that wraps around the shaft. So then when you go to sleep, as you become erect in the night, it expands to measure the quality of the erection and the duration. And as you age, erectile or nighttime erections naturally decreases. And so if you find a person's biomarker on the nighttime erections, you can actually bioage them. And it's a marker of physiological, sexual, and physical health. So it's a really important marker about the health of somebody. If you're somebody in life that's grinding and you're not sleeping well, you're likely having 0 nighttime erections.
I want to table for a minute the question of I love the concept of better erections. Personally, for the world, it's an important project and I'm in favor of it. When it comes to the link to longevity, this in the bucket with maybe you run countless tests. Every day there are tests. You have sort of monthly tests that you return to. You are called the most measured man in the world. How many? So they're markers for age, but is there an underlying? And it seems like your theory here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is or maybe your hypothesis is if you just correct for all of the markers, you're sort of correcting for age in general. What is there an underlying aging thing that we don't understand, don't know about? Like, can this work? I guess is what I'm asking. Can by just sort of, it feels like you're just sort of band-aiding the markers of age. Is that actually reducing the human age, or reducing sort of the detrimental or mitigating the detrimental health effects of aging? Like, is that enough, or is there some bigger piece? It feels like, because it just seems from, obviously you've researched this for years, but to me, it feels like there is something bigger, like this kind of hidden thing.
Yeah. You can slow one speed of aging, or you can reverse aging damage that has happened. And they're 2 distinct categories. The majority of things that people do, like better diet, sleep, and exercise, you're slowing the speed of aging. And then there's things like gene therapy, which can actually, or epigenetic reprogramming, which can reverse age. And those are the more powerful therapies coming down the pipe. So we employ both. We do both age slowing and age reversal. And the majority is age slowing at the moment, as these new age reversing technologies come online.
And then how do you name that in yourself personally? So like I'm wondering what sort of biological age would you say you are right now? And what is your aging, how much do you age in a year compared to the average man?
Let me tell you, I have the exact data. Okay, so I accumulate aging damage slower than 96% of 45-year-olds, 92% of 35-year-olds, 90% of 30-year-olds, 88% of 25-year-olds, and 86% of 18-year-olds. So the older you get, the faster you age. It compounds.
And what would you say you haven't been able to revert, so you've just slowed down the process? Because I think that one thing a lot of people react to, and in any conversation of yours, is you'll say something like, I have like, and I don't want to, this is not a verbatim quote. This is, I think, a rough sense of, it's like, my erection is that of an 18-year-old or something, right? Like, people hear that and they think, this man thinks he's 18, or this man thinks he's 25. How old are you? And then it seems like you're aging more slowly than other people on average. But how old are you?
Yeah, this is it's a new concept, so it's really cool. People are grappling with this. If you looked at a baby's heart and an 80-year-old heart, they're different by both how they look and how they function. So you can determine biological age looking at structure and function. And so I can be chronologically, I'm 46, but my heart can look like and function like, a 32-year-old. And that's what we've done, is we've measured every single one of my organs, all my biological processes, and we basically have quantified. So for example, my cardiovascular health, my VO2 max, has a functional capacity of the top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. So it's not that I think I'm 18, it's that when I compare that right capacity, and then we do the same thing with my entire body. My lungs, for example, my diaphragm strength has the functional capacity of an 18-year-old. My left ear has the functional capacity of a 64-year-old.
What's going on there?
Might have hearing damage from a kid. As a kid, when I shot a lot of guns and listened to loud music.
What's I mean, this is a slight departure, but I'm curious. Is there a program to assist you there? Have you figured anything out?
Sadly, no. We haven't had any success.
I have all sorts of ear problems too. I got a lot of tubes as a kid. And so I'm going through ear stuff right now. I'm sort of maybe selfishly obsessed with this question right now. So there's nothing. Damn. The one thing I really needed right now.
Yeah, there's a few gene therapies that are in labs right now, but nothing that we can find that is close to being applicable to use right now.
So the look of it is fun, and you've talked about the playfulness of this already. Is like that is the way that you approach a philosophy of life. Once you decided to live, you were going to live. It was going to be fun. You were going to try to maximize that life. You were going to share your results with everybody, which is what you're doing in public, which is one of the things that I really love about your work is you show us everything that you're doing, and we get to kind of learn as we go or challenge it. You handle the criticism really well. If you were to get rid of all of that, though, the sort of look of it and the public piece of it, just the idea of interrogating yourself, trying to understand how your body works and how to become healthier, measurements, the empiricism of that, and workarounds, like these are classically sort of tech industry things. This is like the engineering type person should love this and historically has. I expected the media to sort of come after you, and I expected people online, random people online, to make fun of it all, because that's always happened in tech. I will say some of that's new, right? The history of longevity in fiction, for example, is as old as literally our oldest fiction, Gilgamesh, etched in tablets, right? We have been talking about immortality or eternal youth, the fountain of youth, right? It's coded into all of our stories. It's not really until modernism that becomes it's also in our faith, right? I know you're kind of rejecting some of this right now, but like that is deeply what Christianity is about, is eternal life through a mystical process. But like we see it everywhere at every lever of Western culture until recently. We see it. So it's fallen off in the media, but where you still saw a lot of this hopefulness maybe 12 years ago or so, when I first started working in tech, was this industry. There was a strong, robust, sort of technologically progressive, super sort of like groovy, almost Burning Man type vibe among, I would say, like who I considered the elites, the people I liked the most in the industry. They were fearless. They would get made fun of it and not care. There were many of them. And I guess the sense that I've been having, this sort of strange sense I've been having while talking to you both now and earlier in our earlier conversations, is you're doing something that is very new, and yet it feels like, and you're being attacked for it as if it's new, but there were many people doing this 12 years ago, maybe not like you're doing it now, right? Like not this extreme, but there are many people talking about this. They have fallen off. The conversation in the technology industry has changed significantly, which is alarming to me. Like you have the media left going after it because you're a really rich person doing something. Now on the political right, there is a huge ascendant push towards the natural. It's like the hippie right is what we're seeing rise up. That's the soul bras of the world. It's like the meat eaters. They're out there sun tanning and getting muscled. They're not here for all this gay stuff. And it's like, that's the vibe that we're getting over there. And it seems like you have no more natural base of support. I have a lot of questions on this subject. My first one is just, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you feel like a little bit lonely in tech right now? Do you feel like you've had as much support as you would have liked or thought you might have? I don't know. Let's just maybe start there.
My private interactions are a different reality than the public interactions. My friends and even acquaintances are so generous with me and kind, and they've been eager to engage. I've seen nothing but positive reactions privately. So it's not the reality I live in. And that's why the online space is so fun for me. It's just like this circus. We all get to play in the fun games. But no, privately, I was reminded as a young father when I was learning how to teach my child to swim. I was exploring the ways I could teach him. And I looked up online and I found a few suggestions. That one, you could push the child into the pool, like good luck. Or you could jump in the pool yourself and say, jump into my open arms. Or 3, you can show them their friend doing the given thing. And of those 3 things, the most powerful way to teach your child how to swim is to show them their friend that can swim. Because if their friend can do it, they can do it. If their friend can do it, they want to do it. They want to be in this tribe. They want to be part of belonging. They want their respect.
You see this in world records for things like races and strength competitions and whatnot. These previously you would think unattainable goals. Also, you see this in figure skating when crazy techniques are innovated, the axles and to the double to the triple axles. That once it happens, multiple people figure it out pretty quick.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And this is the thing. This is what I was trying to prove with Blueprint is anybody can talk about a given problem. Being the problem is an entirely different answer. And so if you just simply take health and wellness, we know that's primarily our responsibility. But if you take it into a broader frame and say climate change, most of us will say, way past my ability to do anything. I can recycle my boxes and I can plant a tree, but I'm really powerless in this bigger question on planet Earth. Or like our nation state's going to go to war, powerless. I can't really do much about the situation. So we assess these problems. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to take on the world's problems, every single one. I wanted to take on the risk of annihilation risk. I wanted to take on AI goal alignment. I wanted to take on climate change. I wanted to take on death. And the way you do that is you become the problem. And that's what I've done computationally. So yes, I post nudes. Yes, I have a certain aesthetic. And those who are paying attention, and it's increasingly more every day, I'm trying to demonstrate a zeitgeist of existence that will dominate in a century from now, but which we cannot see. And it hits all the things.
Yeah, it is we keep talking about the aesthetics of it, or I keep talking about it because I'm just very interested in aesthetics generally and sort of what they evoke and what culture follows. And you were very clearly, yes, you're having fun, but you have created your own aesthetic sensibility, and it is this, futuristic aesthetic. It is what is the world going to look like in 100 years? It's like that kind of an aesthetic, from the way that you dress to the way sometimes that you don't dress, to the way that you wear your hair and things like this. That's something I think generally in the tech industry. So for years, I would beat the drum of like, we need a better vision for the future, both in terms of what it is going to look like and also in terms of what it's going to be. People often talk about the, techno-utopianism. And I'm like, what is that? You have to describe it to people if you're going to get them on board. Like, what does their energy bill look like, right? Like, how are they living? What does their home look like? How are they dressing? How are they falling in love? How are they having children and raising them? What are they eating? Like, these are the things, these sort of the texture of a human life that's always been missing from techno-utopianism, which is something that I really cared about a while ago. I will admit that over the last few years, especially, I've been really beaten down by like this relentless culture war stuff. And I've lost a lot of that. And I don't think I'm the only one, because I look around and again, I just don't see that stuff. I don't see as strong of a strain of the techno-utopian. There are all sorts of people who will pay lip service to it and they'll talk about it. And there are some people who do take it even a little more seriously. The EAC guys, I think, are a version of this, but they're also still, they're mostly, it's a very powerful and very important meme, but there are less people willing, I think, to live truly groovy, kind of wild lives. You are one of them, I think. Am I getting this wrong? Do you feel like the industry is sort of less on that beat, more on that beat? And then I would like to talk about sort of what the vision for the future needs to be. But first, just like, do people am I wrong? Like, do you feel like the vision is still there? Is there less of it? Is there more of it? Where are we? Yeah. Where are we in the narrow sort of tech industry space on that question?
I was with about 15 people at a dinner party a couple weeks ago. And one of the people there went on this little monologue and said, where is the future? And he made a couple comments like, in my circles, we're just talking about the latest guest on the Lex Fridman podcast. We're listening to what Peter Thiel said, like whatever. And he's like, where is the future? And I had spoken a few minutes earlier about Blueprint and about this idea of aligning myself and of zeroism and a bunch of things. And however I said it, it just didn't resonate with him as being interesting at all. And part of me was like, I've failed. Like this person seems like they're genuinely interested in trying to put their finger on the future. And I just presented to him my very best guess on what the future is, and it missed. Like he didn't, he's still like, where is it? And so this is the challenge I always feel for myself and all of us. The future is always, always here. The only question is who sees it. It's not, that's it. Like we know, like if you look at throughout history, the future had always arrived, and a very small percent of the population actually saw it. And then those who did see it, there was a pretty big fork of those who rejected it, made fun of it, and those who actually thought it might be a thing. And so for me, I'm always in that discerning state of trying to assess whether my own ideas really are, or whether I've seen it in the world and I've missed it. But that's the hardest thing, is getting sucked into the vortex of the present. It's the omnipresent challenge.
What resonated, the content that you're putting out, I guess, the way that it resonated for me was it felt very much like a return to something important. It felt very much like a really amazing, beautiful dream that I had and I had forgotten I had. And you were this herald from the past talking about the future. And it got me excited again about really weird things and really difficult things, and solving challenges that you're not supposed to say are challenges. Yeah. And death is very much this. You mentioned Peter a moment ago, and there's a lot of alignment. I would not say that he's definitely not doing what you're doing in terms of his daily routine, but Peter was the first person in my life who ever challenged me on the issue of mortality. And it was something that I've always feared and really cared a lot about, but somehow had not, until I met him, allowed myself to wonder if we had to die. It's so baked into the world, right? Everything tells you have to die, from our religion, though some of them I think are more complicated than that, or complex. I would say I do feel that Christianity is there's a life, it at least is promising life everlasting, even if it requires death to get there. There are many that don't do that. It's like reincarnation, death to live again. You have this meme about aging with grace, and it seems not so graceful to me. There's no graceful way I don't see the graceful way to age. I see my parents and I want them to be healthy and alive forever with me. And I want them to be with my, grandkids and great grandkids. I don't want them to get older, and it's not graceful. It's horrible. I see it as a cancer. Peter helped me sort of get there early on. That was a very important question for me. I certainly, got a little bit lost over the last few years, feeling like some other sort of core fundamental things were challenged. And now, I don't know, it's sort of like, it's back to that for me, at least in part. I want to think about this stuff again. And that requires this weird sort of exploration, and it requires being weird. And it's like, I guess you were saying earlier, the respect of your peers is not so important if you're working on a project that is future oriented. It's like, you should be creating something fundamentally new, and that's going to challenge people. Do you see signs, maybe more broadly than the tech industry? One, do you agree with my assessment that the death stuff's really baked in at this point, culturally? And then two, do you see signs for optimism there, for more alignment on the question of life?
Yeah, that's been one of the things I think that I've been personally pretty surprised at, is the intensity at which people defend death.
Yeah.
And then I'd say on the optimism side, I don't put much stock into what people say generally.
Yes. Nice. Yeah.
And I think that when you eliminate the data point of what people say, it clears the air for an extreme level of optimism on my part. Where basically we humans, we adopt technologies that help us do the things we care about instantaneously. If a digital navigation system helps us arrive at our destination more efficiently than a paper map, we say yes to it. If a washing machine does the clothes, cleans the clothes better than down by the creek, we say yes to it. We say yes to technology, and then we forget we ever resisted these things in the first place. And technology is now on this path of improving so dramatically, it doesn't matter what we say about it. We're going to adopt it. It's inevitable. And it's going to produce, and we're up against a wall of fog and knowing where it's going to take us. But I guess that's why I'm so bullish is if we can properly get the philosophical foundation right as we walk into this future, I'm bullish. So basically, we develop this super intelligence. What do we do with it? Do we use it to play the games that humans have always played, which is raise armies, conquer territory, acquire wealth, and dominate? Or do we use it to pursue a new ideological framework of don't die, which is don't die, don't kill each other, don't kill the earth, and align AI with don't die? And that's what I'm hoping we can cement, because if we use these technologies to play old school Homo sapien games, we're going to dramatically increase the risk we annihilate ourselves.
Well, this brings me to a question on really like what people are, I guess. One idea that has captured my attention for the last few years, I've talked about it a bit on this podcast, I've written a little bit about it, is the concept of Lindy. And in the online orbit of people talking about health, you have the hyper measured and future oriented, and I would, you're, in my opinion, sort of like the leader in that camp. And then you have the crunchy, hippie, right wing sort of new health thing that's happening. Maybe the Sobras of the world are there. These are the people who sun their balls and eat liver meat, and they're all like carnivores, or at least they're eating like heavy meat diets, lifting weights. What they're it's not just a reflexive. I want to steelman them a little bit. It's not just a reflexive anti-progress, anti-future thing. A lot of it is, I think, based in this idea that there is wisdom baked into really ancient stories and ancient ways of doing things. And it's just a process of trial and error, right? So like things that have been around for the longest have a very good chance of having benefited people for the longest because they're proven out. So this asks a question like, if there's a drug that's been around for just a couple of years, how long might it be around? What's your best estimate for how long something new will be around? And it's like, maybe as long as it's been around. It's very new. It hasn't been tested yet. There are all sorts of drugs and vaccines that we take that we no longer take and no longer want to take. Building materials that we had in the 20th century are gone. However, the chair, like concrete, stone, these things have been around forever. But there were probably ancient things that we tried that didn't work out. They weren't as good, right? I think that these people, the sort of crunchy right or the hippie right, sort of waving the flag of Lindy, which Nassim Taleb has also really, really popularized, are trying. I think there's a worry that we've lost something in modernity, important truths, and this is maybe this is like the aesthetic marker of that way of thinking. Like, what have we left behind that we should not have left behind? Now, my problem with the Lindy stuff, I'm taken by it generally, or maybe in general. My high level problem is like there's no such thing as a Lindy rocket ship. if you believe in any kind of progressive worldview for mankind that extends beyond this planet, it's like you have to take risks. If you want to do anything great, any new advanced energy forms, like you need to try stuff. But do you think there's a wisdom at all in the sort of like this, the soul bra stuff, the weightlifter stuff, the crunchy right, like the Lindy stuff? Do you see anything there?
I think what you're talking about is an issue that actually is not being addressed, which is that the most formidable form of intelligence that's been on this planet for the past 200,000 years have been Homo sapiens. We have remapped this planet to accommodate the things we care about with our intelligence. And it's just like death is ingrained, so is the assumption that our intelligence reigns supreme and should be in the captain's seat making decisions. And the blind spot that's created in that contemplation is that a new form of intelligence that is superior in certain domains has arisen. And that is when you get data sources of sufficient quality and you apply computational intelligence that can do things that humans cannot do, that becomes the de facto thing. And it's just like navigating from point A to point B, an algorithm that's taking into account all the traffic flows of all the cars on the road is going to outcompete any human. There's no way a human can outcompete that because they don't have access to data. And what the conversation on Lindy doesn't account for is that we have achieved this now with personal health and wellness. And that's what I've been trying to show with Blueprint, is the age of human intellect being the source authority for decisions on what to do and how to take care of ourselves is now a bygone era.
It seems that people have felt this way about every sort of, I mean, we have a whole, at least let's just talk about the last 50 years of pharmaceuticals, right? There are many people who came with data and they were wrong, or their data sets were too small, or they were looking for one thing and didn't account for something else. I agree that we have a Homo sapien blind spot and probably some sort of massive, supermassive intelligence, some AI a few years from now would be able to account for much more. But we are using that human intelligence to try and search out the right kinds of data to metric or to even make assumptions. Like we have, like we know what the optimal health strategies or whatnot. We know it's working, but what I'm saying is, like, what don't you know you don't know? And there has to be a lot of those things. There is maybe almost a hubris in the assumption that we have figured so much out. It doesn't admit, unless I'm just completely wrong here and we've really cracked the code. It seems like we have a long way to go.
If you so the premise on the thought experiment was when the data quality reaches a certain threshold. And what I'm proposing is, and what I've been trying to show with Blueprint is, I've become the most measured person in history. And if you look at the way in which we're measuring my body, and you consider that we're contemplating hundreds of data points from blood, saliva, stool, DNA methylation, MRI, ultrasound, fitness tests, like we're doing hundreds of measurements. And we have that data in hand to then pair up with the scientific evidence. It's, in my estimation, far superior than saying what has been should be.
Yes. Is there a balance, though, that maybe is helpful or not at all? Do you sort of throw away the wisdom in that completely? Or is there no utility in that?
Without diving deep, I wouldn't throw away the entire thing, but I'm trying to think of anything practical that would say that I would find some heuristic of what has been and should be that I would vote on over an MRI. Yeah.
I think that when it comes to health, these are the two genders, so to speak. And maybe it's always been this way. Go
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The thing that is, this fight is going to play out in this discussion, and it's fine. There's no conceivable future where human heuristic based upon the path wins the day. There's nothing. There's no way it's going to happen. At some point in time, it's only a question of when the majority of people basically concede that the data quality is sufficiently good and the algorithms are sufficiently good that you have better outcomes. Because ultimately, whoever is talking about the Lindy, they're playing the same game as everyone else. They want wealth, they want power, they want status, and they want sex. And when they lose on the metrics they care about, they're going to adopt the things that help them achieve wealth, power, success, and status. And so I put myself out as a blueprint. If I'm better at achieving those things than them, they're going to have to reconcile at some point the methodologies they're employing. This is what I'm saying. I'm bullish about the future. It doesn't matter what humans say. We always adopt what advances our own self-interest. So ultimately, we naturally navigate to the best solution because it helps us achieve our objectives.
If that's true, then the recent sort of philosophical embrace of death, the aversion to the longevity stuff over the last, 50, 60 years, I mean, have we naturally sort of weighed to that because it's helpful in some way? Like you haven't, but culture has, like the average person has. Or is there a storytelling blind spot that the empiricists are suffering from?
Yeah, we saw the world change within 24 hours with COVID. We restructured our entire society in a matter of days. We are incredibly capable at changing and extraordinarily fast. And we do so when the circumstances require it. Up until then, everyone runs their mouth on everything, this and that. It doesn't matter. Like we're on the long time horizon, we're headed on a certain path where data combined with algorithms will be superior to our current native form of intelligence. Now, we're going to have some interaction with this intelligence. What it is, TBD, but it's not going to be the case that we retain this capacity. And so our opinions about death and other things, they're going to morph beyond our recognition. And that's when I hear you speak and I hear your emotional and intellectual experience relating to this, people's opinions a decade ago and where you're at now and what you care about. And like you're trying to navigate the zeitgeist to a certain degree. I feel you. And I also, in this conversation, I feel liberated that I'm tuned out because I legitimately don't think that anyone knows what they're talking about. They're running their mouth and they're doing so because that's what their meaning making game is to run their mouth, right? It's to say a given thing is get a reaction from someone else is to acquire health, power, status, connectivity. Like we're doing this thing, but ultimately it doesn't matter because these systems of intelligence are running us in ways we can't even see right now. And we'll do so more in the future. So we really need to nail the philosophy correct. We need to basically get it right to say, let's not use this new form of intelligence to kill each other. Let's not do it to annihilate the world. Let's not do it to kill the planet. Let's just get these basics right. Then we can have all our fun and games and like do these status games or whatever the case. But this is why I feel so much excitement about the future. And I like with myself, I ignore myself. Like when a given topic is, when I'm presented with a given question, the first four thoughts I have are wrong. I don't even care what I think. I'm just working through my gut reactions at every given question. So I treat everyone else like I treat myself, like kind of like I just don't even care what I think.
You return to the data. Is just like this. You always go back to the measurements.
I mean, even the question like, do I want to live to the age of 250? I have no idea. There's not even like it is foolish for me to even begin to entertain that question. It's so idiotic for me to contemplate that I would even know what it means to live 250 in this age we're going. What does it mean? Like you pose any question, like how would I even begin to answer that question and be coherent? So it makes no sense in my own mind for me to answer any question like that when I know I'm up against a wall of fog. I can't see. Now, if you ask somebody in the 1700s, what do you think about that? Like that's reasonable because the world wasn't changing at a speed that it was going to change on their time scale of life and death. things were pretty much going to stay the same. We're the first generation in human history where we will experience dramatic change multiple times in our lifetime, maybe even multiple times per year. So we just socially, psychologically, as a society, we haven't reconciled yet with what it means to change as fast as we're going to change now. And we're trying to catch our breath. But these conversations are already relics of the past. Like, they're absolutely backward looking, and they're ignoring the future we're heading into.
You're alluding, I mean, I think one of the big things that you're alluding to, and done it a few times in this conversation, is artificial intelligence. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in terms of the unlocks that AI will bring? Obviously longevity, but when you say that, like, what do you mean? How is it going to help us measure and figure out what to do with our bodies?
Yeah. You know, when AlphaFold solved the problem of how do proteins fold, a problem that had, it was like 10 to the 132 possibilities. Nobody thought it could ever be a problem that could be solved. It was computationally larger than the number of atoms in the universe, and it solved it. And so when AI has been by capable teams like Demis and crew over at DeepMind, when they have been able to apply their intelligence to a very specific problem, they've cracked it. Go and AlphaFold at stunning speeds. Now, if you get these tools, you make them more general, like we're doing with the LLMs now and a few other open source approaches, and you have a whole bunch of people applying these things to narrow problems, you do some basic math on what the solve rate for impossible problems could be and what those things unlock. It breaks the mind. We can't understand it. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we're at the cusp of this, of all these things coming together. We have the ability to engineer reality at every possible level. We have the tools of intelligence now getting into people's hands. These systems are now moving about in society. It's a different reality. Like, we can, for the first time, can't say anything coherent beyond 6 months of our reality.
Last question. I would love to know kind of what advice, specifically health advice, you would give your younger self, your sort of 21-year-old self. What are the easy things you would put him on the path of, whether it be, sleep, diet, exercise? Like, what's the advice that you have for the goal of living longer and healthier?
Yeah. Counterintuitively, making health your number one priority will increase the odds you achieve your epic goals more so than any other thing you can do in your life. And currently, that is not the wisdom. The wisdom is burn yourself to the core by sleeping under your desk, eating poorly, going days without sleep, and that's how you do it. You grind your way to the victory line. And what I'm saying is the exact opposite. Make your health number one priority, and you will achieve your objectives in a superior way than if you would have burnt yourself to the core.
You think that you would have achieved? Because this is hard. You achieved pretty tremendous things while you were in the dark space. That is a conflict that worries me as someone who's trying to build things myself. Like, I do think about this exact question quite a lot, and you succeeded at considerable cost to yourself. Your assumption is that you would have succeeded more wildly.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say, I do have the advantage of having capital right now, but in the past year alone, I've had the best year of my life. I became the most measured person in human history. I wrote a book that is contending to be the guiding philosophy of the 21st century. Like, how does one even go about doing that? With my book, Don't Die. And 3 is we've built the most nutritious food program in human history. Now, 3 domains: personal, ideological for society, and then a company product. Now, yes, I have the benefit of capital. Also, it's the best intellectual work I've done in my entire life. Now, I certainly could have gone about doing those things, getting very little sleep and eating poorly and not exercising. I bet you I wouldn't have been able to accomplish them, or I bet you the quality would be dramatically less. And so what you make up in volume, you make up in quality. And there's nothing that can replace clear-headedness. we know this. Like when you're in the right spot, you can accomplish in an hour what your tired mind can't accomplish in 2 days.
I know I said I have one more question actually, because there's something we haven't had a chance to talk much about, which is a quality of yours I think the world is in serious need of. The way that you sit patiently and answer questions like this about yourself, often when they're pointed, is admirable. Online, this happens all the time. I see you engaging with people. I see you laughing at the insults and offering, friendly, not advice, friendly expansion on some given topic, despite the negativity. From where do you get I don't even know what I would call it, the willpower to interact with the public that way, with such kindness and a sense of humor? Like, where does that come from?
I think it's because I make health my number one priority. That I'm well rested, I'm clear-headed, I am emotionally comfortable with myself. And when I was running Braintree in like year 2, someone called into the company and was trying to buy Braintree services. And I was snippy, I'm sure something was going on, like whatever, 10 fires going on, like typical founder stuff. And the person called back and my assistant answered the phone and she said, this guy just called and he said he talked to some other guy who was an asshole. He wanted to call back and talk to someone else. And I was like, oh my God, I need to wake up. Like, of anybody in the entire company that should have been courteous to an interested customer to buy our services. And here I was being a jerk. And it was such a startling moment for me where, running ragged had just made me snippy and ornery and just not my best self. I'll never forget that moment. And I've really tried to change that so that I can be my best self at all times. And this is what I'm saying. I think I would have built even a better company had I been taking care of my health and wellness. Now, that does mean you need to make sacrifices. You need to say no to certain things, because if you're going to spend 30 to 60 minutes a day exercising, you need to make time for that. And that means maybe one less social event or one less something, or maybe you need to cut an hour-long meeting to 15 minutes. So you need to make yourself, you need to gain efficiencies elsewhere, but it's worth it. And the thing is, when this becomes the norm, everyone's going to forget we ever resisted it. It's just the cases when every other kid is in the pool swimming, you're going to be in the pool swimming too. We do what our friends do. And when people are taking care of their health and wellness, we're all going to do it and we're all going to be cool with it. No one's going to raise any kind of qualms about it. We're such a social copycat species. And so this is the thing. It doesn't matter what we say. It only matters what we do, because we all parrot each other in the mirror.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your work. I am very much inspired. It's been a great honor to have you on today.
I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.